All right, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's virtual field trip. Just a couple of reminders out there for everyone. If this is your first experience on a Learn Around the World virtual field trip, you can send in your questions if you're on camera or off camera with us today. And you can do that several ways. One way is you can use the Q&A app built right into your Zoom window. Another way is you can send in your questions to hashtag GEOshow. Just make sure you use the hashtag GEOshow if that's what you're using over on Twitter, and we will see your questions there. We also use Kahoot during our program. As you just saw our Kahoot screen that was up on the board, our today's game pin is 5331248. 5331248. We'll have survey questions and a quiz at the end of the program. If you win our quiz, you'll get a postcard from me, GOB, from the Learn Around the World studio. Also, just a reminder, if you stop me on any questions, great, you're asking fantastic questions. If I need to do further research on a question, I will find out that answer and post it over to Flipgrid. And we have a board set up at flipgrid.com/GEOshow. All right, well, set time of today. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's virtual field trip. And to do so, we're going to go ahead and launch our show. All right, so we're good to go. All right, explorers, we are now live. All right. Welcome to the show. You're now watching the Geo Show, and today's program is titled Komodo National Park, brought to you by Learn Around the World, bringing you guest speakers and virtual field trips just like this one from all around the planet. We're going to kick off today's show with a survey question using Kahoot, so grab your devices if you're playing along. Couple of reminders. The way we use Kahoot is you only get 10 seconds to answer, so not a lot of time. Also, you're only going to see the questions and answers up here on the board where you see me right now. If you're using a device, don't put your face down into it because you will not see the question. You will only see it up on the board. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and launch that first survey question. And I want to know from all of you right now, we're going to Komodo National Park on our virtual field trip. But where is Komodo National Park? Where is it located? Is it located in red, Indonesia, blue, Australia, yellow, Thailand, or green, Cambodia? What do you guys think? All right, it is in red, Indonesia. All right, so if you answered red, great job. If you said Indonesia or didn't say Indonesia and you still don't know where Indonesia is, that's what we're going to start off today's virtual field trip with is, where is Indonesia? You are watching the Geo Show. We're a geography-based program. That means location matters, explorers. So if we spin our big blue ball around, we're going to the other side of the globe, and we're going to the country of Indonesia. But we're going to freeze it right there because I want to tell you a couple of cool things about Indonesia before we start talking about Komodo National Park. First off, Indonesia is made up of over 17,000 islands. Yep, you heard that correctly, explorers. 17,000 islands makes up the country of Indonesia. So many, many, many islands. Most of them are small islands, but as you can see from the satellite image here, that many of them are large islands. It's also the country. The people here speak over 700 languages. That's a lot of languages to learn if you live in Indonesia. And speaking of a lot of something, they have a lot of people. In fact, they have the fourth largest number of people of any other country in the world. They only fall behind China, India, and the USA. They rank number 4. They're also the largest Islamic country. So when we talk about religions around the world, a lot of people think it's the Middle East, but no, it's actually here in Indonesia. They have the largest population of Islamic followers. Okay, so we're going to focus today on Komodo National Park. So it's only found in one small area, and it's located in the Flores Sea. So the Flores Sea here, we see these Lesser Sunda Islands. And as we zoom in, we're going to see Komodo National Park. Komodo National Park is made up of 5 major islands and a lot of other smaller islands as well. And you can see the red is the route that we took on our expedition. We're going to take a look at 2 islands today, and they are the 2 largest. So we're going to talk about Rinca Island. This is one of the islands that we're going to visit to talk about Komodo dragons. We will visit some of the ranger stations located here on Rinka Island. We'll talk about why ranger stations are a good place to go see Komodo dragons as we go along. Now, there are fishing villages and people that live on Rinka Island, so there's some competition for the food sources. So the Komodo dragons don't get as big as they do in our next island that we're going to talk about, and this is Komodo Island. So Komodo Island is where the dragons and the national park get their name from. So Komodo Island. And again, Komodo Island, the dragons, they're not really dragons, but the Komodo dragons, they get a little bit larger over here because they have more water buffalo, deer, wild boar, more prey and larger prey to feed upon. So they will get a little bit bigger over here. And you'll see a comparison of those. And again, here we are going to focus our walkthrough over by the ranger stations. And again, we'll talk about why they may be a good place when you go here one day, maybe not, to see Komodo dragons live in person. Now, during the expedition, we actually spent the night anchored right off the shore here near the island of Komodo. All right, so this is the route that we're taking. And before we start our virtual tour of these two islands, we do want to introduce our on-camera guests that we have with us today and give a couple shout outs. So first shout out is going down to Austin Elementary in Texas. So welcome everyone that is watching the show from Texas today. On camera, we have with us Mrs. Malone's 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders from Coppell, Texas. Welcome to the show, guys. All right, and do we have any explorers from your classroom that has a fun fact about Komodo dragons you would like to share with everyone today?
So our fun fact about Komodo dragons is that they're going extinct. And the reason we chose this fun fact was because we want to bring attention to the matter that they are going extinct and see if we can stop people from hunting them illegally and try and prevent them from going extinct.
All right, so this is a great fun fact. I'm glad you brought this up. And since you brought it up, let me ask your classroom, do you know when we talk about animals and where they're at, we have a scale. So it's a conservation scale of animals. And we classify them of how, let's see, how close they are to becoming extinct. Do you know where they're classified on that scale? Okay, so have you guys heard of endangered? Right, so endangered animals. So endangered means you're almost extinct. There's actually one more subcategory. It's like critically endangered, but there's if you're endangered, that means you're almost extinct. You're getting very close. Well, Komodo dragons are one step over, so they're considered vulnerable. Can you guys say vulnerable? Okay, so on the scale, on the official scientific scale, what their population size is and so forth, they're considered vulnerable. So that means they're like one step over from becoming endangered, and then another step over, then no more, right? So, so great. That's so awesome, guys. I'm glad that you are doing that and taking that on. So definitely everything you learned today, I hope you guys become inspired and you go share with everyone how cool animals. These are awesome animals. So we're going to talk a lot about Komodo dragons today. We're going to give another couple shout outs. We only have one classroom on camera with us today. Another shout out is going to Royal Hall Elementary in North Carolina. So shout out to everyone watching from NC today as well. We're going to go ahead and get started and visit Rinka Island first on our virtual field trip of Komodo National Park. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, Komodo National Park is made up of islands, as is the whole country of Indonesia, but many of the islands are big enough to fly an airplane to. Well, not any of the islands in Komodo National Park. So you have to fly to a bigger island, which is to the east. It's called Flores Island. And we took a boat over here to Rinka Island, is where we're starting our virtual field trip off today. Now, we're going to be talking about Komodo dragons and focusing on them, but they are not the only animals in Komodo National Park. And in fact, Komodo National Park also includes what's under the water here too. So there's fabulous reefs, coral reefs, and lots of marine life that you can see here. But we are focusing on the dragons, but they are not the largest reptiles found So they are reptiles, both crocodiles and Komodo dragons, but Komodo dragons are lizards. And in fact, they're the largest lizards in the world, but they're not the largest reptiles in the world because crocodiles are bigger than they are. So as you see the sign here, there are crocodiles about, and there's also other dangerous reptiles as well. So there's two kinds of venomous snakes on the island. So there's a spitting cobra and a vipera as well. So you need to watch your step as we walk around today, guys. So there were lots of boats here on this small dock over on Rinka Island. We had to actually hop on someone else's boat to even get off of our boat. And we met this man, as you can see, the guy guiding us in the brown colored shirt and green pants. He's a park ranger. And the reason you meet a ranger right at the dock is because before we can even get to the ranger station to check in, guys, right here, we already start to see Komodo dragons. Now, we're going to talk a lot about Komodo dragons as we continue on. But again, I mentioned this already. They are reptiles, but they're not the largest reptile. Instead, they're the largest lizards in the world. So they're actually lizards, not actually dragons. And as we see here, lizards as well as other reptiles are cold-blooded. Cold-blooded. And let's ask our class down in Texas, if you're cold-blooded, can you regulate your own body temperature? No. So you use your environment. Now, for most people, I would say in the US, typically when we see lizards and other reptiles laying around, typically they're laying out in the sun trying to warm up. So, right? So if you're a cold-blooded animal and you want to get warm, you go lay out in the sun. We call this sunbathing. But it's kind of reverse here in Indonesia in Komodo National Park because it's so hot. It's very, very hot here. And instead, you see them most often laying in the shade. And in fact, they dig burrows, so they'll get in cool burrows at nighttime to cool off as well. So you often see them laying flat on the ground with their bellies on the cool ground in the shade. All right, so let's go ahead and check in the ranger station. So we sign in and they want to make sure that we leave if we show up. Now, just like any other national park that you travel to in the USA or most of the world, park rangers are there to protect us. They're there to protect the Komodo dragons. They are protected here. As we learned, they are vulnerable and they are protected. It's illegal to kill them or hunt them here. And but they're also here for education. So they have lots of cool displays that we can learn about Komodo dragons. In this display, we see some evidence of some of the Komodo dragon prey. So they are a predator. They are meat eaters. And what do we call meat eaters? Carnivores, right. And they're also scavengers. So they're kind of a mix. So they will eat carrion, which is dead meat. So if you scavenge on dead fish that wash up from the ocean, and they will also prey or predate on their prey. So water buffalo, we see monkey skulls, and probably the number one food of the Komodo dragon, though, the number one natural food, because water buffalo and there's wild pig called wild boar. Those, both the water buffalo and boar, were brought here by people. But right here, these deer skull. So deer is the number one food source for the Komodo dragons if they had their choice, and the natural food source of the Komodo dragons. Now, there's some other evidence that we're going to see as we start to walk around. And first off, we see something that's kind of smeared out, kind of mud looking on the ground. Do we have any guesses of what this stuff is down here? Okay, it's not mud. I'll give you a hint. It kind of looks like mud, may smell bad, kind of wet and sticky, comes out of a Komodo dragon. Right, so poop, or lack of better words. Scat, droppings, whatever word you want to use for poop. And so Komodo dragon, so we get lots of information from looking at what comes out of a Komodo dragon, what's left over, right? And when we look here, we see hair and hooves. So remember that deer that they like to eat? Well, here's the hooves and hair that's left over from a deer. Komodo dragons swallow their prey whole, or in chunks, I should say. So when they kill a deer, they're going to tear off a leg and they'll swallow that leg whole. Bones, hooves, hair, everything. When we compare them to other predators, say like a lion, that's a good one to talk about. Lions pull the meats off of the bones. They don't actually eat the bones. And when they pull the meat off the bones, they can't get everything. Lions only eat about 70 to 75% of their prey, whereas Komodo dragons eat up to like 88% of their prey. So all about 12%. The only thing that they don't consume in their body is the hair and the hooves and the bones that come out. Everything else gets digested. So they're really efficient. They have really efficient digestive systems because they swallow everything. They eat everything. And speaking of everything, what is this, do you guys think? This also came out of a Komodo dragon. All right, so I'll give you a hint. So it's not, we saw hooves, we saw hair in that other pile. This was pretty close near there. What do you think? What is not hair? What is not hooves that maybe doesn't get digested by the Komodo dragon? Right, bones. So I'm glad you guys got this. So a lot of people, it's kind of confusing sometimes, but the bones actually get crushed up in their digestive system, and it comes out in basically calcium, right? So calcium, bones are made of calcium. Calcium is typically white when we see deposits of calcium, and that's what we see here. How cool is that? Well, let's go ahead and stop looking at Komodo dragon poop and see if we can go find some Komodo dragons. And does anyone see any Komodo dragons yet? I don't know. All right, so Komodo dragon's walking towards us. Now, before we're going to let them keep coming towards us, but I do want to point this out because it's kind of in the background, very at the top of your screen up here. Does everyone see that little dot right there? That's some long-tailed macaque monkey. So they do feed on these monkeys as well. You see that monkey walking away? Yeah, okay. So let's look back at the Komodo dragon. We have a Komodo dragon walking towards us right now, guys. What do you guys think we should do? Should we run? No, why not? Right, they could bite you. So you could cause them to chase you. That could cause a reflex, or their natural instinct is to chase prey. So a Komodo dragon is just walking towards us. Guys, these are the largest lizards in the world. We talked a little bit about what they've eaten so far. So they eat deer, they eat pigs, they eat smaller Komodo dragons, they even eat each other. They eat water buffalo, they eat dead, rotting meats called carrion as scavengers. You know what else they eat? They can eat people. So I was scared, right? I'm not gonna lie. My heart was going do 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 do. And right at this moment, when it's starting to slow up, and our guide is standing right beside us off of camera started going. Can you guys make that noise? All right. So when you just made that noise, the guy just made that noise as well right beside us, and that Komodo dragon stopped and lifted its head up. And I'm going to let you listen to a Komodo dragon giving that noise. We're going to see a Komodo dragon doing the same thing over on Komodo Island. But what they're doing is they're giving a warning sign. Komodo dragons they kind of live their lives by themselves. They don't live in groups. And so they don't like even other Komodo dragons getting, into their space, getting into their bubble. So we'll see that in just a little bit. But as we look at this Komodo dragon, I think this is a great place to talk about one of their adaptations. So as we look at this Komodo dragon walking back towards us again, does everyone see that tongue sticking out and coming back in its mouth? All right. Who knows what they're doing with their tongues?
They're trying to find prey. They're trying to find prey.
Right. They're trying to find prey, or they're also just smelling. They can smell. Some people think that they can smell, the animals that have this type of smell can smell fear. Some think that they can smell all kinds of different smells. Let me see if right. There. Okay. All right. So that's hard to get them. All right. They do it so quickly. And so right here, we get to see that forked tongue. What kind of other reptiles have a forked tongue? Snakes. Okay, so we look at this really long forked tongue, and they have the same type of adaptation that snakes have, and many other reptiles have this as well. But it's a forked tongue, and as you guys pointed out, it's a type of smelling that they're doing, and they do this with a organ. It's called the Jacobson's organ. Can you guys say Jacobson's organ? All right, so this is one of their adaptations. And for our younger classrooms watching out there, you don't have to remember that big word, adaptations. But what it means is this: adaptations is the equipment or tools that animals use to live in their homes. So if they're a predator like a Komodo dragon, that can be the tools that they use to find their prey. If they're a prey like a deer, it's the tools that they use to get away from the Komodo dragons. So we have all kinds of different adaptations. And Komodo dragons, one of their really awesome adaptations is a really good sense of smell. And they do this with the Jacobson's organ. Now, they do have nostrils just like we do, but this works better. So there's little molecules of olfactory that we can detect with our olfactory senses. That's our noses. But they do it with the Jacobson's organ. So what they do is they stick that forked tongue out into the air, and that wet tongue, these molecules stick from the air on there to their tongue. And when they bring it back in their mouth, at the roof of their mouth is an organ that will read this information and tell their brain which direction that smell is even coming from. How cool is that? And it works way better than their nostrils do. In fact, Komodo dragons can smell dead, rotting flesh from 2.5 miles away. So remember I said a ranger station is a great place to find Komodo dragons. That's because rangers need to eat food just like we do. So when they're cooking their lunch, Komodo dragons just come from all around. They smell that from up to 2.5 miles away. So it's a great place to get a guaranteed sighting of Komodo dragons. So as we go back and look at our Komodo dragon, so we just talked about that Jacobson's organ and that warning sign that they give each other. So let's go back, and we're actually going to head over to Komodo Island now. And if you remember me telling you earlier, as we watch this Komodo dragon walk around us, Komodo dragons, well, on average, I would say if we look at this one here, this one's probably a little less than 100 pounds. Average, most of them you see is going to be around 150 to 200 pounds, but they can get larger, a lot larger. In fact, they get larger over on Komodo Island. So this Komodo dragon that we're going to see, abracadabra, yay for virtual field trips. I just saved you guys a multi-hour boat ride, and this Komodo dragon is a lot bigger than the one that we just saw. So how big can they get? They can get up to 10 feet long and up to around 300 pounds, the largest ones. In fact, the largest one ever documented was 366 pounds and was 10.3 feet long. Whoa, that's big. But as we watch this giant lizard walk by the other one. Remember that sound I taught you guys how to make? Well, let's listen to what it sounds like when a Komodo dragon actually does it. So everyone listen really carefully towards the speaker where you hear my voice coming out right now. And I'll turn the volume up and let's see if you guys can hear it.
So slow, but for sure. That's dragon voice.
Did everyone just hear that hiss? Right. So this Komodo dragon that's right here on the ground, it's telling the one walking by, hey, you need to get away, get out of my bubble. And if you're not, then we're going to fight. So Komodo dragons, typically, they will stay out of each other's way. Now, when do they fight? Because they will fight. They'll fight during mating season. The males will fight each other. They'll also fight over food because there are, even though they're vulnerable, there's a lot of Komodo dragons on these islands. There's around 2,000 or so on each of these islands in Rinca and Komodo Island. So remember, they can smell prey up to 2.5 miles away if something's killed, like say if something's bleeding. So if a Komodo dragon kills a deer, anything that's nearby and it's hungry, they're going to come over and try to get that meal as well. So if it's only a little bit less, they may fight each other. Now, Komodo dragons, we see them laying around a lot. And I want to point this out because often if we see them on the Animal Planet or Discovery Channel, it often shows them while they're actually attacking, while they're feeding, and they're fighting, they're running. They can run really fast. But most of the time when you come here, you see many of them that you see, they're laying around inactive because they're cooling off and because they only need to eat about once a month. So when a Komodo dragon eats, if it has the opportunity, it will eat up to 80% of its body weight at one time. Whoa. So that means a big old 300-pound Komodo dragon can eat hundreds of pounds of flesh in one sitting. And because they have a slow metabolism, it's going to last an entire month before they need to go out and go hunting again. So as I walk off the front of this ranger station where we just saw those two, you can see a Komodo dragon here. There were a couple behind there. There's one off the camera this way. They're all around. And you may ask yourself, well, how do you protect yourself with all these Komodo dragons around? And one of the ways, as you can see, I'm carrying this stick. Now, we'll talk about what that stick is used for in a minute. I'll let the rangers explain how those are used to you. But first, I want to point out a couple of things that we've already talked about. So over on Rinka Island, that first island we went to, there are people that live alongside of these Komodo dragons. And this is a great place as well to talk about the climate here. So it's a tropical Sahara environment or biome. So that means that Sahara is mostly grasses and shrubs on top of these hills, but you will get some forested areas in the lower areas where the water runs off. It only, there's 2 seasons in this part of the world. There's a hot season, or sorry, they're both hot seasons. There's a dry season and a wet season, and they're both hot. And then here, I said this is the largest Islamic country in the world. We can see a mosque. This local community's mosque is up on the hill. And again, over 17,000 islands in Indonesia. Most of them are small. Komodo dragons are fantastic swimmers. They can swim from island to island. If we saw a Komodo dragon that was swimming out here, they kind of thrash their tails back and forth and swim along the water. They can swim, and they do swim, and they are great swimmers. Again, you have to take boats out of here. Here's what it looks like on top of those hills. Komodo dragons, we talked about them hunting. They're what we call ambush predators. That means they'll hide out in the shrubs and in the grass, and they'll wait for game to come along these trails like deer or water buffalo, and they'll run out and charge after them really quickly to try to catch them. And here's something that's really cool. Let me ask you guys, Komodo dragons are reptiles. So does that mean they give live birth, or do they lay eggs? Right, they lay eggs. So if we put an egg over here, so they lay eggs. And when they lay an egg, their eggs, their clutch size is typically around 15 to 30 eggs. One egg is about the size of a grapefruit. And when they hatch, they're called hatchlings, the babies. And when they hatch, now I have really awesome drawing skills, as you can see. And when they hatch a baby Komodo dragon, the first thing they'll do is they'll scurry up and go up into a tree. And they'll live the first couple years of their lives in trees. Why is that? Well, it's because the big Komodo dragons will eat them. And large Komodo dragons can't climb trees. When you weigh 300 pounds, when you're a 300-pound lizard, you can't climb a tree any longer. But when you're a very small 16-inch long lizard, which is what the baby hatchlings are, they're only about 16 inches long, you can make it up a tree. And even when you're a couple feet long, they're going to live in the tree. They're going to be feeding off insects, other small lizards, birds if they can catch them, bird eggs, anything they can find up in the trees, they're going to feed off of until they're big enough to walk around on the ground away from larger Komodo dragons. And this brings us to our next survey question of the day. If you're using your Kahoot devices, go ahead and wake them up. Again, that game pin today, if you're playing along with our Kahoot game, is 5331248. So we're going to go ahead and launch it. And I want to know from all of you guys, an audience survey, is how many eyes do Komodo dragons have? How many eyes do they have? Do they have 2 eyes, 3 eyes, 4 eyes, or 1 eye? What do you guys think? All right, so if you chose yellow 3, you are technically correct. They technically have 3 eyes. Now, this isn't something that's highly unique of Komodo dragons. In fact, many lizards have 3 eyes, and it's a underdeveloped eye, and so it's not it's not a fully developed eye like our two eyes are. They can only see like shadows or shade with this. Many people think that what they use this for is they can use it to tell the changing of seasons, you know, how much sunlight is during the day and so forth. And that's kind of the working theory there. But when we talk about their eyes, let's go back and talk about some more adaptations. We talked about the Jacobson's organ. Well, if we look at their face a little bit more closely, we can point out some of the other adaptations of the Komodo dragons, and two of those is the eyes. So what kind of eyes do they have? They have great eyesight during the daytime, and because they are diurnal animals. Can you guys say diurnal? Okay, diurnal is the opposite of nocturnal. So what does diurnal mean? Right, so they're most active in the daytime. So they have mostly cones in their eyes. So we don't have time to get too much into it, but you can ask your teachers, our older classrooms, what are rods and cones if you don't know what they are. But it basically means they see lots of colors, and those eyes don't work really well in dim light. We have a lot of cones in our eyes, but so their eyes work fairly well in the daytime. They can see about 985 feet. So they work really good when there's a lot of light. They do have nostrils, as you can see here. But again, that Jacobson's organ that they use with their forked tongue works a lot better than that. Here's something that's really cool is this is something I did not know when I grew up, because most people said they killed their prey with their saliva and the bacteria in their mouths, but they're actually venomous. They're actually venomous. And if you guys forget everything I tell you today, I guys want you to remember, when an animal bites you and injects toxins into you, they are not poisonous. Is there such thing as a poisonous snake? Okay, no, there's no such thing as a poisonous snake. Scientifically speaking, there's a difference between poison and venom. Venom is when an animal bites you and injects toxins into your body. That's like a snake or a lizard in this case, all right? If you eat something and consume it, that would be like a poisonous mushroom. That is poisonous. Like poison ivy, something that goes through your skin, that's topical, right? That would be poison. Venom is when an animal bites and injects it into you. So the Komodo dragon, in their bottom jaw, they have a few different venom glands, and that's how they kill their prey. So they have venom that they use in combination with their little sharp teeth. And I'll show you what their teeth look like here in a second. But if we go back here, so they use a combination of venom. They do have bacteria in their mouth, up to 50 strands of bacteria, but most leading thinkers today believe that the bacteria doesn't really play a role in how they kill their prey. And if we look at their claws, their front claws, if it's a small prey, they'll kill them at one time while they're there. But if it's a large prey like a water buffalo, they'll follow them for a couple of days until that venom takes effect. They lose a lot of blood and they end up dying. But they use these claws for when they're younger for climbing trees, and when they're older, they dig burrows. And that's kind of where they escape from the heat in the nighttime. Remember, they can't see very well in the night, so they kind of just hang out in their burrows. Here are those teeth right here. So they're really small, and they have about 60 of these teeth located all around their mouths, and they kind of work like shark teeth. So they will regrow their teeth when they lose them. And here's one of those little teeth right here. So one of the park rangers gave me one to show you guys. How cool is that? All the way from Komodo National Park. There's a little Komodo dragon tooth. As you see, it's not very big. It's about the width of my pinky fingernail, but they are, it's hard to see. You can't see it here. You would need like a micro lens, but it's kind of jagged on the edge. It's kind of like a steak knife. You know how the edge of a steak knife is? Well, on the outside and inside of the tooth, they're jagged. And what they do is, some people ask me sometimes, how powerful is their bite, right? It's not as powerful as other reptiles like a crocodile. Instead, what they do is they bite and grab. So the way that these teeth are designed is, once they latch on, they're not designed to hold on to them and thrash them around like a crocodile. They're designed to chomp down with their teeth and pull back. And what it does is it leaves two big cuts. Imagine all these little 60 steak knives. It cuts two big deep cuts into their prey, and that venom goes from their glands into those deep cuts. and the animals lose, it makes the venom makes the blood where it doesn't clot, and it also makes them go into essentially cardiac arrest because their veins go, they kind of dilate up. And so that's how their adaptations that they use with between their teeth and their venom to kill their prey. And just to, not all their prey takes this without a fight. So you can look at many of their faces, and they will have scarring on their faces from wild boar. Fight back a lot is one of them. And as you can see, you can get close to them when they're laying around inactive. We use these sticks to kind of help protect us when you get up close, but you'd never want to touch them. Because one bite, they are venomous, then it can hurt you. If you get to the hospital, you'll be okay, but they will leave you a nasty bite. As we see some photos, again, all of these were right around the ranger stations because this is where they kind of hang out. A lot of them come to. I went swimming off Komodo Island. Some people would choose not to, maybe, if they knew that they swim. But they don't really hunt in the water. As you can see us staying overnight on the boat. And we'll leave you with a sunset from Indonesia because sunsets are cool. And let's go ahead and open up the floor for any questions that we may have. So we're going to we'll go to our classroom in Texas. A reminder for everyone out that's watching off of camera, you can send in your questions to hashtag GEOshow over on Twitter, or use the Q&A functionality inside of your window that you're watching in right now. Coming from Teacher MD3 over on Twitter, how many languages are spoken around the world? I don't know. How many are spoken around the world in total? I've only researched Indonesia for this show. Over 700 are spoken in Indonesia. Well, I'll give you this much. Over 700 are spoken in Indonesia. Papua New Guinea, so very small country, even more are spoken in a small country of Papua New Guinea. That's because all of their small indigenous tribes, they all speak different languages. And so it's really cool. So just in this one small area of the world, there's over 1,400 languages that are spoken. Let's go over to Mrs. Malone's classroom. Do you guys have a question for us?
Yes, sir. Do crocodiles eat the lizards?
I don't know of any cases off the top of my head if crocodiles eat Komodo dragons, but I would say most animals, especially predators, are opportunistic. Can you guys say opportunistic?
Opportunistic.
Okay, so that comes from the word opportunity, right? So if there's an opportunity for a meal, many predators will take it. So if I had to make an educated guess and I said a crocodile was hungry enough and a Komodo dragon was swimming by, a crocodile would attack a Komodo dragon. That would be my educated guess. I do not know of any specific cases of people observing crocodiles eating Komodo dragons. It's not their typical prey, but I imagine they would. Many animals would eat a meal if they're hungry enough. It's like sharks. Sharks don't like to eat people, but they are opportunistic. If they're hungry enough and that's the available food source, then they will. Okay, great question. Let's go back over to Twitter and see if you guys have another one, Mrs. Malone's classroom, send them up to the camera. We'll get back to you guys in a second. Let's see. And let's see. I don't see any other, just some pictures. Okay, and let's do one more, Mrs. Malone's class, and then we'll kind of address what happens if they attack you question. Okay, go for it.
Why do people hunt them?
Why do people hunt them? Right. Well, today, if you hunt them, it's illegal. So if you hunt them, you're illegally hunting them. So just like lots of things in the world, like with elephants, with ivory, I imagine that we call this the black market. It's an illegal market. So I imagine that there are some people in the world for some reason or another that would want to kill a Komodo dragon. I don't know why. I can't tell you why they would want to do this, but I imagine someone out there has done this and will do it. But park rangers, one of the jobs of the park rangers is to police the national park. So one of their jobs is to help keep poachers. Those are people that illegally kill animals, so to protect the animals. But it is illegal to kill Komodo dragons. So hopefully they're not killing them much anymore. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to jump right in and learn about what those sticks were used for that we saw, and what happens if a Komodo dragon does attack you. What should you do? Well, let's go back to Komodo National Park and meet some of the guides, and they're going to tell us how they stay safe. Is it common for dragons to attack people?
Yes.
Attacked?
All the time, I need this stick. Yeah. We don't have gun.
Yeah.
But this is gun. Yeah. But it is just for to make stop when the dragon come close to me. Yeah. Better to make stop.
Can you outrun a Komodo dragon?
Yeah. You know, the dragons very, very quickly also. You know, 18 to 20 kilometers per hour. Faster than us. Quickly to the.
All right, so 20 kilometers per hour. So for everyone in the States, that's about 12 to 13 miles per hour. And then I asked them next, I don't have the question here, but I asked them what would happen if you do get bitten by a Komodo dragon? What would happen?
Quickly to the hospital. I think you'll be survive. If not, yeah, I think you'll be die.
So, okay, so if a dragon attacks,
yes,
and you have this,
yes,
what do you do?
this stick why, yeah, why this stick fork like this, yeah. This make easier when the dragon come to us, yeah, and we put on the necks, and we throw away.
Like this?
Yeah, like this. If they more aggressive, the very sensitive the Komodo dragon, you can hold on the mouth.
On the mouth?
And they go away.
Do you have to do that?
Yes, every time I do that. Yeah. And this stick, just a stick. Sometimes some people say, "Oh, this is a magic stick." No, this is just a stick. But these sticks, we need the strong wood. Yeah. And this stick we take from the name of wood we call buhung. Buhung, the local names, and the international language we call Bali Kukun. Bali Kukun.
Yeah, Bali Kukun is the tree that these sticks are made of. So they're really strong. It's hard to see here, but they're really dense, really heavy stick. And what they use them for is what he was saying, what he was explaining, if you couldn't visualize it, is they take that Y end and you stick it around their neck. So if I'm a Komodo dragon, you would put the Y end around my neck, and then you can control their head. So if you keep their head away from you, they can't bite you. And so that's what you do with the stick. And that's a safe way for the rangers to stay safe without having to carry things like guns around that would hurt the Komodo dragons, because they do need to protect themselves, because Komodo dragons they are opportunistic, and they will get into feeding frenzies when they are feeding. And so if you get too close, they can bite. If that doesn't work, if they're really aggressive, he said they whack them on the nose, and they're really sensitive, and they'll kind of leave you alone after that, or at least we hope they would. Okay, that's going to bring us into our last survey question. So make sure you get logged in if you're playing along using Kahoot. That game pin is 5331248. Today you can do that at kahoot.it. It's your last chance to get signed in, because we're going to do our last survey question, and then the next ones will be worth points playing for that postcard from me, GOB, in the Learn Around the World studio. But our last survey question for everyone today is, knowing that they do have and will attack and eat people, would you go hiking in Komodo National Park? What do you guys think? All right. So some people said, that's not going to deter me. I'm still going there. Some people were saying, no way, Jose. I am not hiking around there. Well, that's okay, and good thing for virtual field trips, right? So make sure you get logged in again. 533-1248 will be your last opportunity before we start awarding points. And we're going to do another round of questions, and then we're jumping right into that quiz. So let's go back over to Mrs. Malone's classroom. Do you guys have any other questions about Komodo dragons or Komodo National Park?
Do Komodo dragons eat snakes?
Yeah, they will eat a snake. They'll eat anything. They'll eat anything they can get a hold of. So when they are younger, they will eat snakes. And so, yeah, so Komodo dragons will eat snakes. They'll eat, there's no meat that they will not eat on Komodo Island. They're what we call an apex predator. Can you guys say apex predator?
Apex predator.
An apex predator. So if we put the entire food chain into a pyramid or a triangle, the top of a pyramid is called the apex. It's the apex, the point. So if we put the entire food chain of Komodo National Park into a pyramid, at the bottom is going to be the smallest prey, our herbivores, and then our omnivores getting up to our largest carnivores. And this is going to be the Komodo dragon. There's nothing else eats the Komodo dragon. It eats everything else on the island. The only thing it cannot, or the only thing that would eat a Komodo dragon is another Komodo dragon. But it has to be a pretty substantial size difference, like a really big one and a really small one. Two really big ones are not going to try to eat each other. All right, great question. And do we have another one over in Mrs. Malone's classroom? Go ahead and send them up.
Can Komodo dragons be trained?
Oh, that's a great question. And yes, they can. I just found this out, in fact. Let's see. Sorry, I was looking at a different question. Komodo dragons can be trained. So they are what's called you can target train them. Okay, so the way target training works, remember I said they're diurnal in their eyes. They have more cones in their eyes than rods. Cones, this is an easy way to remember it. The word cone starts with C. The word color starts with C. Cone see color. So they're really great. They can see all kinds of colors. And so you can train them. They train them in zoos to what's called target training. So basically, they can put up a red target, a green target, a purple target, a blue target. And for each of these targets, they'll train them, say it's feeding time, or we want you to do this or that. Now, it's not going to be like a dog. Like they're not going to be jumping through hoops and sitting down and shaking your hand. They're not going to do that kind of training, but it's going to be you put up a target, a colored target, and they know kind of what to expect is the type of training that they do. As far as lizards go, you can't target train all lizards, and they have one of the biggest brain cavities of any other lizard, and so they are a smart animal, especially for a lizard. Great question there. Over on Twitter, we have some questions coming in. Are there different kinds of Komodo dragons? No, Komodo dragons there's only one species of Komodo dragon, but there are other types of lizards in their family of lizards. So they are what's called a monitor lizard. Can you guys say monitor? Okay, monitors are found all over the world. So there are other animals that look similar to Komodo dragons, but they're a different species. So they are other large water lizards out there, but Komodo dragons are definitely the largest ones, and not all of them are venomous. So Komodo dragons are their own separate species. There are no subspecies of Komodo dragons, at least that I'm aware of. All right, great questions all around. We're getting kind of late, so we're going to jump right into our Geo quiz. Grab your devices if you're playing along. Again, this is the last final warning to get logged in if you're not already. And today's game pin is 533-1248 over at Kahoot.it. Every question will be worth points from here on out, so the quicker you answer correctly, the more points you are awarded. Good luck, guys. And we're going to launch it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Komodo dragons are the largest what in the world? They are the largest red dragon, blue reptile, yellow lizard, or green dinosaur. And they are the largest lizard in the world. Great job. And jumping out, Amazing Dog is in the lead. Next question. Komodo dragons are listed as a vulnerable. Okay, they are listed as a vulnerable species. Great job. Amazing Dogs doing the lead, followed by Hero Fox and Wonder Wolf. Komodo National Park is found in what country? All right, Indonesia. Great job. And coming up, Amazing Dog takes the lead. Next question. Komodo dragons have been known to eat humans. Is that red true or blue false? All right, and Amazing Dog, Amazing Wolf takes second place. Last question, guys, make it count. Where do the young Komodo dragons live? Do they live red on the ground, blue in the trees, yellow in caves, or green in the water? Okay, they live in the trees, and today's winner is dun 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 dun, Amazing Dog. All right, great job, Amazing Dog. If you are Amazing Dog's teacher, bet you didn't think you would hear that today. You can send me your address in one place and one place only, and that's right here, learnaroundtheworld.com/prize. There's a Google form there. Put in your school address. Snail mail does not work without an address, and that's the only place I take them. All right, for everyone else, if you're heading out, have a great day. I do have a little bit of time to open it up for a lightning round of questions. So if you have time to stick around, make sure you send those questions in rapidly at me. As soon as there's no questions to answer, I will sign off. So make sure you keep them in if you keep them coming if you want them answered. Let's see. We'll start off over on, don't see any on Twitter yet. What about Mrs. Malone's classroom? Do you guys have any questions?
Yes. Do Komodo dragons eat the eyes of their prey?
Eat the eyes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything. And all of it. Komodo dragons, this is really cool. So they can't open, they open their mouths really big. You remember how their necks look real like flabby skin? Well, the reason is because that bottom jaw pretty much goes straight down, bloop. And so it opens up really big, and that skin opens up really big with it. Now, they can't unhinge their jaw and go really, really big like a snake. If you ever seen videos of like a snake eating an egg, for example, you know how big they can stretch their mouths? Well, they don't do that. So what they do is they use those teeth. They will, like if it's a large like deer, they'll chop off a leg, and then they will swallow that leg whole. But as they're doing that, sometimes they can't breathe. They actually have little air holes under where their tongue is, so they can breathe when their mouth is crammed with food. But they do, and one of the beliefs is that saliva that they have, which it used to be when I was little, we were like the bacteria in their saliva is what kills their prey. Now we know that they're venomous. Most people believe that really thick saliva helps that food kind of slide down their throat. And what's also interesting is that, again, when they everything that they eat, they're going to consume everything except the hard things like bones, hooves, antlers, and then hair. But everything else, eyes, organs, meats, muscles, everything gets consumed by the Komodo dragon. Great question. Do we have another one in your class?
Which one on average is larger, male or female?
The males are typically larger than the females. And even so, the females, I would say, would be probably a little over 100 pounds, 150 pounds. Males on average up around 200 pounds. But they can get larger. They can get up to 330 pounds would be the largest ones. The largest one on record is 366 pounds, which is massive, massive. So I'm just shy of 200, so about 190. So that means a 300-pound Komodo dragon could eat me with no problem because they can eat 80% of their body weight. I don't want any of that. All right, great question.
Why do Komodo dragons eat other Komodo dragons?
Right? They're opportunistic. They don't care. If there's food available, they're going to eat it. And if that food happens to be a small Komodo dragon, they're going to do that. If it's Komodo dragon eggs, so the Komodo dragons, when they lay that 15 to 30 eggs that they lay, the mommy Komodo dragon will protect her nest for a little while. So their nests are holes in the ground. So they'll cover up with dirt. And they actually will dig dummy nests. So they'll dig fake nests that kind of fool other Komodo dragons, because Komodo dragons will dig up and eat those eggs. So they don't care. If it's available and it's food, they're going to eat it. Also, because even though they're vulnerable, they're not found in a lot of places anywhere else in the world except these islands. So even though there's not many of them in total, there's a lot of them on these small islands. So there's a lot of competition for food. And so one of the food sources is smaller baby Komodo dragons. Here's something that's really cool. When we talk about adaptations, it can be like behavior, it can be physical adaptations. We talked about eyes, Jacobson's organs, teeth, all these physical things. Birds have wings to fly. We have thumbs to text. No, not text. We have thumbs to use tools, and Komodo dragons have all kinds of physical adaptations. And then animals can also have behavioral adaptations. So this is how you behave can help you survive. And one of the ways that the young behave is they roll around in big Komodo dragon poop. And this makes them smell like a bigger Komodo dragon, and it helps them taste bad. And so it just helps protect them from larger Komodo dragons. Little fun fact for you there. Great question. Over on Twitter, we got some coming in. Has a Komodo dragon ever been a pet? And I get this one a lot. You can make any animal a pet technically, but in order to do so, it's basically a zoo. You can't love them and hug them and squeeze them like you do your kitty cat or your puppy dog at home, right? This is a dangerous pet. So in order to have a Komodo dragon, it's essentially having a zoo at home, because you have to have their own enclosure. It's not recommended to have them as a pet, and it would be illegal now. The way that you get Komodo dragons, zoos get them, is typically countries will like trade. So it's like in the US, if you have a grizzly bear, you can say, hey, Indonesia, we'll trade you a grizzly bear for like 2 Komodo dragons. And this is what zoos do. It's kind of interesting how zoos work, but the world has made it illegal to pay money for animals. So you kind of have to see what the value of in Komodo dragons as like an elephant is. I mean, how many Komodo dragons equals an elephant? I don't know. It's a fun game. Maybe 5, 6. I don't know. But that's how they do it. The last time the U.S. got Komodo dragons was actually a gift from the Indonesian president. He gave 2 Komodo dragons to George W. Bush, when he was the president in the early 2000s. And I believe they're at the Cincinnati Zoo, if I'm not mistaken. Great question there. Another one coming in on Twitter. How do Komodo dragons find their mates? Okay, partly, remember that Jacobson's organ? So when mating season is in, they can smell each other, and they can smell when the time is right for mating. When is that time? When is time? The time is right. Typically from May to August is the mating season in the Komodo National Park. And they lay their eggs typically sometime in September. All right, let's go back to Mrs. Malone's class. Do you have another question?
Why doesn't the mother just eat the eggs?
Right. So they don't eat their own eggs. So they don't raise. So reptiles don't raise their young, or at least typically, and not that any I can think off the top of my head. Mammals are unique, whereas mammals give milk. It's one of the classifications or defining attributes of mammals is that they give milk to their young. And so typically mammals, like we are, we get milk from our moms, and there's a bonding that happens there. They're hanging out with their moms. Typically of reptiles, this is not the case. They lay their egg. As soon as that egg hatches, that baby is on their own. They just internally know what to eat. They go out there and they live their lives, and hopefully they grow up and get bigger. And so moms aren't going to raise their young. They're going to protect their nest for a little while. So they do have a need to protect their nest. They're not going to eat their own eggs, but they will eat other people's eggs or other Komodo dragon eggs. Now, I get this question a lot. I don't know how you would begin to research this, but I don't think that they can tell if they ran into one of their babies a year later. I don't know if they would be able to tell if that was their baby or not. That's just a question I can't answer. Great question, though. Over on, let's see, Twitter, no other, yep. How long do Komodo dragons live for? Okay, great question coming in. And Komodo dragons, and this is a great time to talk about sources, guys, and research, okay? Because two reputable sources, and because I had to like go back and double check my research because I had 30 years. 30 years is what they live in the wild, is as what I was told at the park. And when I double checked myself, I looked at the Smithsonian. They just say 30 years. And then you look at places like the Canadian National Zoo, they say they live up to 50 years in the wild. So clearly there's some disagreements over the range, but somewhere in between 30 to 50 years is going to be the lifespan of a Komodo dragon. I've more often than not found 30 as the number, but again, this is great. And you know what? Science is always changing. For instance, when I was your guys' age, people used to say it in our science books. It said Komodo dragons kill their prey with the bacteria in their saliva. Today, we know that that's just not true. It's their venom, and it may play a role, but not as big as we once thought it was. So science is we're always learning new things. And so always, when we do our research, check many different sources and then come up with the best answer that you think. Great question there. Let's go back to Mrs. Malone's classroom, and we'll end on one last question. Do we have one last question? Go for it.
Do Komodo dragons get eaten by other animals?
Only other Komodo dragons. So no other, they do not have a predator that is a different species. The only other, you could say humans, but humans aren't going out there and eating Komodo dragons that I'm aware of, and it's illegal to do that. All right, great question to end on. Thank you, everyone, for coming along with us to Komodo National Park today, and have a fantastic Friday and a great weekend down in Texas. And to everyone else watching the show, I'm GOB. You've been watching the Geo Show, and until next time, guys, it's a great big world out there, so keep exploring. Have a great one, guys. Bye.